For the past 8 years, I've been the keeper of the Lighthouse, a solitary tower on a rocky island 12 miles off the coast of Maine. Most people think lighthouse keeping is romantic, peaceful, a retreat from the chaos of modern life. They're not entirely wrong. But what they don't understand is that some of us don't choose solitude because we love it. We choose it because we're running from something we can't face. Then, one October night during the worst storm I'd seen in years, someone pounded on my door. A man, half dead from hypothermia, barely conscious. I pulled him inside and saved his life. For 3 days, we were trapped together while the storm raged. And on the third day, he told me something that changed everything. Before we dive in, have you ever run from something you knew you needed to face? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you love stories about second chances, difficult truths, and finding courage when you thought you had none left, please subscribe so you don't miss our next one. Now let me tell you about Bradley, and how 3 days in a lighthouse during a storm taught two men that running never actually gets you anywhere. I've been running for most of my adult life. Not literally. Not like the man who would show up at my door during a storm, but running nonetheless. From responsibility, from pain, from the uncomfortable truth that I wasn't the person I'd wanted to be. 8 years ago, I was a high school history teacher. I had a wife, Elena, and a daughter, Lucy, who was 20 at the time. My life looked stable, successful even, but the truth was messier. Elena and I had been growing apart for years. We'd married young, too young probably, and built a life on assumptions that stopped being true somewhere around year 10. By year 15, we were strangers sharing a house. We fought constantly, about money, about Lucy, about my drinking that had gotten worse as the marriage got worse, about everything and nothing. Lucy took her mother's side. Of course she did. I was the one coming home late, the one who'd forget school events, the one who was physically present but emotionally checked out. When Elena finally asked for a divorce, Lucy looked at me with such disappointment that I couldn't stand to be in the same room as her. The divorce was finalized when Lucy was 21. She stopped speaking to me entirely, said I'd abandoned the family long before the papers were signed, and she was right. I tried to keep teaching, but I couldn't. Every day felt like drowning. So when I saw an ad for a lighthouse keeper position, 6 months on an isolated island, 6 months off, I applied without telling anyone. I got the job, packed my things, left Portland, and for 8 years that's been my life. 6 months alone on Split Rock Island from April through October, maintaining the lighthouse, weathering storms, existing in solitude. 6 months on the mainland from November through March, living in a small apartment in Bar Harbor, working odd jobs, avoiding anyone who might ask questions about my life. Lucy and I hadn't spoken in 2 years. She was 28 now, living in Portland, probably with a life I knew nothing about. Sometimes I thought about calling her. But what would I say? That I was sorry? That I'd been a coward? She already knew that. So I stayed on my island, alone, where I couldn't disappoint anyone. October in Maine is beautiful and brutal. The leaves turn brilliant colors on the mainland, but on the island there's only rock and sea and the constant wind. The tourists are gone by mid-September. The birds migrate south. By October, it's just me and the lighthouse and the storms that roll in from the Atlantic. I'd weathered dozens of them over the years. Nor'easters, mostly. Powerful storms that hit the New England coast in fall and winter. You learn to read the weather when you live on an island. Watch the clouds, monitor the pressure, listen to the marine forecasts. I'd gotten good at preparation, securing equipment, checking generators, making sure supplies were stocked. On October 15th, the forecast called for a significant nor'easter. Winds up to 80 miles per hour. Waves potentially reaching 30 feet. Heavy rain for at least 48 hours. I'd seen worse, or at least I'd seen storms just as bad. This wasn't my first October on the island. I spent the afternoon of the 14th preparing, bringing in anything that could blow away, checking the backup generator, making sure the radio equipment was secure. The lighthouse itself was solid, built in 1897, maintained carefully over the decades. It would be fine. I would be fine. The storm hit around midnight. The wind came first, howling around the lighthouse tower, rattling windows, making the whole structure groan. Then the rain, horizontal sheets of it driven by the wind. The waves grew quickly, crashing against the rocks with enough force that I could feel the vibrations through the floor. I sat in the keeper's quarters reading by lamplight. The electricity was still on, but I didn't trust it to last and listened to the storm. After 8 years, storms didn't scare me. They were almost comforting. Nature doing what nature does, indifferent to human concerns. Around 2 in the morning, I heard something that wasn't the storm. A pounding. Rhythmic, desperate. On the door! I stood up confused. There was no one on this island but me. No boats would be out in this weather. No one could have. The pounding came again. Harder. I grabbed a flashlight and went to the door. Unlocked it. Pulled it open against the wind. A man collapsed into the entryway. He was soaked through, shivering violently, lips blue. His clothes were torn. He tried to speak, but couldn't form words through the chattering of his teeth. I grabbed him under the arms and dragged him inside, kicking the door shut behind us. The wind screamed in protest. What happened? How did you... I stopped asking questions. He was hypothermic, possibly dying. Questions could wait. I got him into the main room near the wood stove, pulled off his wet jacket, his shirt, his shoes, got blankets around him, started water heating for tea, checked his fingers and toes for frostbite. He was maybe 40, 45, dark hair plastered to his head, lean build. No identification visible. I'd check his jacket later. Can you tell me your name? I asked. He managed to focus on me. Bradley. Okay, Bradley. I'm Adam. You're at Split Rock Lighthouse. You're safe. Can you tell me what happened? Another violent shiver cut off his words. Okay. Don't talk. Just focus on warming up. I spent the next hour managing his hypothermia. Got hot tea into him. Added more blankets. Checked his core temperature as best I could without medical equipment. He was in bad shape, but he'd live. Probably. By 4 a.m. Bradley had stopped shivering quite so violently. His color was better. He'd drunk 2 cups of tea and was working on a third. Thank you, he said quietly. I thought I was going to die. You almost did. What were you doing out in a boat during a storm warning? I didn't. The storm came faster than I expected. I was anchored in the lee of the island when the wind shifted. My anchor dragged. The boat got pushed onto the rocks. It broke apart. I barely made it to shore. It was plausible. People misjudged weather all the time. But something about his story felt off. The storm had been forecasted for days. Anyone who paid attention to marine weather would have known to be nowhere near these waters. But I didn't push it. The man had nearly died. He deserved rest, not interrogation. There's a cot in the back room, I said. You should sleep. We'll figure out what to do in the morning. The storm's too severe for a rescue right now. And honestly, in your condition, you shouldn't be moved anyway. You're stuck here until the weather clears. Bradley nodded, exhaustion evident. I helped him to the back room, got him settled, and closed the door. Then I went back to the main room and looked at his jacket, still dripping by the door. Checked the pockets. Found a waterproof bag with a wallet inside. Driver's license. Bradley Clayton. Age 43. Address in Portland, Maine, Portland. My old city. Maybe we'd even been neighbors once. In the strange way people can be neighbors in a city and never meet. I put the wallet back and tried not to think too hard about the fact that his story still didn't quite make sense. The storm continued through the next day. The wind, if anything, got worse. I checked on Bradley several times. He was sleeping mostly, which was good. His body needed rest to recover. By evening, he was awake and moving around. Still weak, but functional. I made soup from canned vegetables and we ate together at the small table in the main room. How long have you been a lighthouse keeper? Bradley asked. 8 years. You? What? How long have you been sailing? Oh, about 15 years. Off and on. You live on a boat? A slight hesitation. Yeah, for a while now. Must be a different kind of life. Always moving. It is. He looked out the window at the storm. Sometimes I forget what it's like to be still. There was something in his voice, not quite sadness, but a kind of weariness that I recognized. The exhaustion of someone who'd been running for a long time. We finished eating in silence. Then Bradley helped me clean up, insisted on it, even though I told him to rest. I need to do something, he said. I've been lying down all day. I'll go crazy if I don't move. I understood that, understood it better than he probably realized. By the 3rd day, the storm had settled into a steady, grim assault. Still too dangerous for rescue, but not the violent chaos of the first night. The radio antenna had been damaged in the initial onslaught. I'd discovered it that morning when I tried to check in with the Coast Guard. We were isolated completely until the storm passed. Bradley seemed better physically, But something was wrong. He was restless, pacing the small keeper's quarters, staring out the windows at the gray sea, barely eating. "You okay?" I asked over breakfast on the third morning. "Fine. You don't seem fine. I need to get off this island. The storm's not done yet. Even after it clears, we'll need to wait for the Coast Guard. Probably tomorrow, maybe the day after." Bradley's jaw tightened. "I can't go with the Coast Guard." "You don't have a choice. Your boat is destroyed. There's no other way off." "I'll swim if I have to. The water's 45 degrees. You wouldn't make it a quarter mile. I don't—" He stopped, ran his hands through his hair. "You don't understand. Then explain it to me." Bradley looked at me for a long moment. Then he sat down heavily at the table. "I can't be found," he said quietly. "When the Coast Guard comes, when they see my name, it's going to create problems I've been avoiding for 15 years. What kind of problems? The kind where people thought I was dead." The room went very quiet. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, I stared at this man I'd saved, trying to process what he'd just said. "You're going to need to explain that," I said finally. And he did. Bradley Clayton had been a different person 15 years ago. CEO of a tech startup in Boston, married to Colleen, father to Caleb, who was 5, and Nora, who was 3. Successful by every conventional measure. Money, status, trajectory pointing straight up. Also miserable. Desperately, suffocatingly miserable. "I was working 80-hour weeks," Bradley said, staring at his hands. Raising venture capital, managing a team, dealing with investors who wanted everything yesterday. I'd come home at midnight, leave at 6 a.m. My kids barely knew me. My wife was raising them essentially alone while also working full-time. We were achieving the American dream, and I was dying inside. "So you left?" "Not at first. At first I tried to make it work. Tried therapy. Tried cutting back hours, which lasted about 2 weeks before investors threatened to replace me. Tried medication. Nothing helped. Because the problem wasn't fixable. The problem was that I'd built a life that required me to be someone I wasn't. And I couldn't figure out how to dismantle it without destroying everyone around me." He paused, looking out at the storm, so I disappeared. I took my boat. I had a small sailboat I'd bought, thinking I'd have time to use it, which I never did, and I sailed out into the ocean, left the boat drifting with the engine off, left my phone, my wallet, my clothes on deck, made it look like I'd fallen overboard. "You faked your death." "Yes." "Your wife thought you drowned." "Yes." "Your kids thought their father was dead." "Yes." His voice broke slightly. "I know what that makes me. I know exactly what I am." I sat back trying to process this. "Where have you been for 15 years?" "Sailing. Mostly the Caribbean in winter, up the coast in summer. Working odd jobs under fake names when I needed money. Never staying anywhere long enough for anyone to ask questions. Living on the boat, alone. Why?" Every year that passed made it harder to go back. I was a coward. He looked at me directly. "I'm still a coward. That's why I can't let the Coast Guard find me. That's why I need to disappear again before anyone realizes I'm alive." The storm rattled the windows. I stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the violent sea. "You can't," I said finally. "Can't what?"
"Disappear again?"
"Bradley, you have kids. They're what, 20 and 18 now? They spent 15 years thinking their father was dead. You can't just keep running. Watch me. I won't let you." Bradley stood up. "You can't stop me. When the storm clears, I'll leave before the Coast Guard arrives. I'll find a way." "And what then? Another 15 years of running? How long can you keep this up?" "As long as I have to. That's not living. That's just existing. And you know it." "You think I don't know that?" Bradley's voice rose. "You think I don't wake up every day hating myself? But it's too late. Too much time has passed. There's no going back. There's always going back. It won't be easy. It'll probably be the hardest thing you've ever done. But it's possible." Bradley laughed bitterly. "Says the man hiding on an island. You're running, too. Don't pretend you're not." The words hit harder than they should have. "Because he was right, yeah?" I said quietly. "I am running. Have been for 8 years. From a daughter who won't speak to me. From a marriage I destroyed. From the reality that I was a terrible husband and a worse father. So yeah, I'm running. But at least I'm not making my daughter think I'm dead. At least she can hate me to my face if she wants to. Is that better? Really? I don't know. But it's honest." Bradley sat back down, deflating. "What would I even say to them? Sorry I let you think I was dead for 15 years, but I was stressed at work. There's no apology big enough, no explanation that makes it okay. You're right, there isn't. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is giving them the choice, letting them decide whether to hate you or try to understand or anything in between. Right now you've made the choice for them. They don't even know they have options. We sat in silence for a long time. The storm continued its assault. And I thought about Lucy, about all the choices I'd made for her without asking, about how I'd run to this island instead of staying and fighting for our relationship. I'm not brave enough, Bradley said finally. Neither am I. But maybe we should be. We'd been trapped together for over 60 hours, and the revelation about Bradley's past hung heavy in the air between us. We sat across from each other at the small table, the wood stove crackling, the wind still howling outside but with less fury than before. I'd been thinking about what Bradley had told me all day, about his family, about 15 years of running, and about the way he'd looked that first night. Hypothermic, half dead, terrified. "Can I ask you something?" I said finally. Bradley looked up from the coffee he'd been staring into. "Sure, that first night, when you were at my door, barely conscious. You thought you were going to die." "I did think that. You fought like hell to survive. Pounded on that door even though you could barely stand. Held on while I warmed you up. You wanted to live. Instinct, probably. Survival mode. Maybe." I leaned forward. "But Bradley, you were desperate to live. I saw it in your eyes. You weren't ready to die. What's your question? If you wanted so badly to survive that night, what exactly are you surviving for? What's the point of staying alive if you're just going to keep running? Keep hiding? Keep existing instead of living?" Bradley's jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You've spent 15 years on a boat, alone, working under fake names, never staying anywhere, never connecting with anyone. Are you happy? Honestly? Happy?" He laughed bitterly. "No, I'm not happy, but I'm also not drowning in a job that was killing me. I'm not failing my wife and kids every single day. I'm not—" "You're not anything," I interrupted. "You're not failing because you're not trying. You're not hurting anyone because you're not letting anyone close enough to hurt. But you're also not living. You're just floating. Literally and metaphorically. You don't know what it was like. You're right, I don't. But I know what running looks like. I've been doing it for 8 years. And Bradley, I can tell you, it doesn't fix anything. It just freezes you in place. You're still the same person you were 15 years ago, carrying the same guilt, the same fear. You haven't grown. You haven't healed. You've just postponed dealing with it." Bradley stood up abruptly, walked to the window. "What do you want me to say? That I regret it? I do. Every single day. That I wish I'd been stronger? I do. But I can't change the past." "I'm not asking you to change the past. I'm asking you what you're living for now. Because, from where I'm sitting, you're not living. You're just killing time until you die. And if that's the case, why did you fight so hard to survive that first night?" He turned to face me, and I saw something break in his expression. "Because I'm a coward, even when I should let go. I can't. I cling to this miserable half-life because I'm too scared to die, but also too scared to actually live. My life doesn't mean something. That's the point. I destroyed any meaning it had 15 years ago, then build new meaning. You can't get back what you lost, but you can create something different going forward. But not if you keep running." Bradley sat back down heavily. "You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's probably the hardest thing you'll ever do. But Bradley—" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "That first night when you thought you were dying, what did you think about?" He was quiet for a long time. "My kids, Caleb and Nora. I thought about how they were 5 and 3 the last time I saw them. I wondered what they look like now, if they remembered me at all, if they were okay." "You thought about them?" "Yes." "Not about escaping. Not about your boat or your freedom or any of the reasons you ran in the first place." "No." "So maybe that's your answer. Maybe that's what you're living for. The chance to see them again. Even if they hate you, even if they never forgive you, at least you'd know they're real, that they exist, that you didn't just imagine them for 15 years. Bradley's hands were shaking. "Are you going to do it? Face what you're running from?" The question hit me like cold water. "I don't know." "That's honest, at least." "Yeah, but here's the difference. My daughter knows I'm alive. She can call me if she wants to. She has the choice to forgive me or not. Your kids don't even know they have that choice. You made the decision for them. And that's not fair to them." He looked at me with something like desperation. "I'm terrified." We sat in silence for a long time. The storm continued outside, but it was weakening. By tomorrow, maybe the day after, the Coast Guard would come, and Bradley would have to decide who he wanted to be when they arrived. The storm broke on the fourth day. The wind died down to something manageable. The waves, while still rough, were no longer suicidal. The sky lightened from dark gray to pale gray. I fixed the radio antenna as best I could and contacted the Coast Guard. They'd send a boat by late afternoon. Bradley sat at the table, silent as I made the call. When I finished, he looked up. "You're really not going to let me run. I can't physically stop you, but I'm asking you not to. As someone who understands running, as someone who knows it doesn't actually solve anything, what do I do? Where do I even start?" "By getting on that Coast Guard boat. You tell them who you are. You face the legal consequences. I don't know what those are, but they exist. And then you contact your family and you tell them the truth. They'll hate me. Probably. At first, maybe forever. Bradley, don't you feel bad you don't know your children?" He nodded slowly, and I saw something shift in his face. Resignation, maybe, or the first hint of courage. The Coast Guard arrived at 4 p.m. 2 officers, professional and efficient. They'd come to rescue the man whose boat had capsized. Bradley stood at the door, frozen. "You can do this," I said quietly. He took a breath, walked out to meet them. "I'm Bradley Clayton," he told the officers, "and there's something you need to know." 3 months later, I got a letter. It was forwarded from the Lighthouse to my winter address in Bar Harbor. Handwritten envelope, postmark from Portland inside, 2 pages in careful script. "Adam, I don't know if you want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know what happened after the Coast Guard boat. They brought me to the mainland. I told them everything. They contacted the authorities in Boston. There was paperwork, so much paperwork. Technically, faking your death isn't illegal, but there were insurance complications, legal issues with the death certificate, a mess of bureaucracy. But the hard part wasn't legal. It was calling Colleen. She'd remarried 5 years after I died. She's happy. She deserved to be. When I told her I was alive, she was furious. Not that I came back, but that I'd put her and the kids through hell for no reason. Caleb is 20 now. In college, when I met him, he looked at me like I was a stranger, which I am. He was 5 when I left. He doesn't remember me. He only knows the story of the dad who died. Replacing that story with the truth that his dad abandoned him was devastating. Nora is 18. She doesn't remember me at all. For her, I'm just a disruption in a life that was fine without me. They don't want a relationship. Not now, maybe not ever. And I can't blame them, but I told them the truth. I apologized, not because an apology fixes anything, but because they deserve to hear it. I'm not living on the boat anymore. I have an apartment, a job. I'm trying to build something stable. Not for them, they made it clear they don't need me, but for myself. Adam, you asked me during the storm if running was better than facing things. You were right that it wasn't, but you were also right that you're running too. Have you talked to your daughter yet? The storm didn't just save my life. It forced me to stop running. I hope it does the same for you. Bradley, I read the letter 3 times. Then I picked up my phone and pulled up a contact I hadn't used in 2 years. Lucy Harding. My thumb hovered over the call button for 5 full minutes. Then I pressed it. She answered on the 4th ring. "Hello? Lucy, it's me, Dad." Silence. Long enough that I thought she might hang up. "I know," she said finally. "What do you want?" "I want to apologize for disappearing and choosing the Lighthouse over fighting for our relationship. For being a coward." More silence. "I don't forgive you," she said. "I understand. But Lucy, I want to try, if you'll let me." "Coffee? Just once? I'll drive to Portland. You pick the place. Why now?" "I met someone who helped me see that running doesn't fix anything, and I'm tired of running from you." She was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. "1 coffee," she said finally. "That's all I'm promising. That's more than I deserve. Thank you." I went back to the Lighthouse for my 9th season in April, but something had changed. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was choosing solitude for the right reasons, because I loved the work, the rhythm of the island, the simplicity. Before I left for the season, I'd installed satellite internet in the keeper's quarters. Expensive but worth it, because every Sunday evening at 7 p.m., my phone would ring. Lucy. We'd talk for 30 minutes, sometimes about nothing. Her job, the weather, a book she was reading. Sometimes about harder things. The divorce. The years I'd been absent. The hurt that doesn't disappear just because you apologize. It was awkward, often painful. And when I came back to the mainland in November, we started meeting in person. Coffee every 2 weeks in Portland? Still difficult. Still learning how to be father and daughter again after so many years of silence. But we were trying. Bradley sent occasional updates too. Caleb had agreed to dinner twice now. Nora still wasn't ready, maybe never would be. Colleen was cordial but distant. But he was showing up and felt better than in years. Neither of us had solved our problems. We just stopped pretending we could outrun them, and maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. Have you ever run from something you knew you needed to face? Or found the courage to go back and try to fix what you'd broken? Share your story in the comments below. If this story about facing hard truths, second chances, and learning that courage means showing up even when you're terrified touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more meaningful stories every day. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss our next inspiring tale. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.